Tēnā koutou katoa, and welcome everyone to our Aotearoa New Zealand Lunch and Learn series in partnership with Aotearoa Volunteering New Zealand. My name is Kelsey, and with this series we intend to support you with all of the amazing mahi that you do by inviting along thought leaders in the volunteering space to have insightful kōrero over your lunch break. Super excited today to be joined by both Michelle Kitney, who many of you probably already know from Volunteering New Zealand, to chat about the New Zealand Volunteering Changemakers Hui, and Rochelle Stewart-Allen, known as the NGO Coach. Rochelle is running a masterclass at the Hui, and today she's giving us a preview, sharing insights on leadership styles and how to spot and manage gaps in leadership. So welcome to you both. Thank you so much for coming. Now, just quickly before we kick things off, for those of you who aren't aware of Rosterfy, we've been around for 8 years now, and we're used by over 3 million volunteers and staff worldwide. We've recently ticked over 150 million hours of volunteering powered by Rosterfy across 35 different countries, and we are all about connecting communities to events and causes that they are passionate about. Here's a quick sample of some of the customers that we work with worldwide, supporting them with the volunteer experience end to end. And the fact that we are so highly configurable is our point of difference and makes us super effective at supporting our partners in cutting down on manual processes and spreadsheets so that they can focus on scaling and better connecting with their volunteers. Here are a few more of our partners as well, but in the sporting and event space. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we just kick off this session now with Rochelle, who's giving us a bit of an insight into leadership today. There is a question box at the top right-hand corner that you can drop in any questions, and otherwise feel free to drop them in any time through, and we'll do a quick Q&A at the end right after we hear from Michelle as well. But let's kick things off. So for more than 20 years, Rochelle has been right in the thick of non-profit leadership, making the tough calls, rebuilding trust, and carrying the weight of organizations through some pretty challenging times. Now, that experience is what drives her work today. Rochelle believes leaders need more than just resilience. They need clarity, calm, and connection. And through the NGO Coach, she offers practical and genuine support to those navigating leadership. So thanks so much, Rochelle, and over to you.
Thanks, Kelsey. And hello to everybody. I'm excited to be here with you. I know this is an opportunity for you to have some takeaways today on your leadership journey. And also, I'm looking forward to those who are going to be in the masterclass with me at the Volunteer Changemakers Hui coming up in October. So it's not long now, only a month away. So I'm really excited. I think my masterclass is nearly full, Michelle tells me, so that's exciting as well. I know that it's, I've been in your position, you know, being a manager, being a leader, also being a board member, where it's really difficult to get any professional development. Money and resourcing is so tight in non-profits that often it's just not the norm. It's very common in business and government to have opportunity to go out and attend courses, have training, have coaching, have mentoring, go to conferences, but it's really limited, and there's really limited opportunities to actually do that. So today I'm going to give you a little taster of a couple of the topics that I'll be following in the masterclass coming up. But I also want to give you some things that you can learn and reflect on and take away, and even do a little bit of time, you know, sit down with your diary or your journal and just schedule in a little bit of time and for you. I always talk about the non-profit sector as being very focused on communities, but often at the sacrifice of our own well-being. But my overarching philosophy at the NGO Coach is that you can't run on empty. Like, you can't keep giving out when you're not filling your own cup. So today we're going to start to originally talk about leadership styles. So you may, like a lot of people in the non-profit sector, because you haven't had any training or opportunity for development, you may have actually just developed your leadership style purely by watching what other leaders have done, or maybe it just emerged. You know, often people are put into volunteer manager roles or into chief executive roles without any training. So they might be really great at the service delivery and really understanding the communities that you're serving, but have really limited opportunity to actually think about their role as a leader. What does that actually mean? So I'm going to go through these leadership styles in a moment. I just want to say that this sort of moment, there's no right or wrong in leadership. I'm somebody at the NGO Coach that teaches that each person has their own unique style of leadership and that you should really work in that style. That's the way that you feel energized. That's the way that you keep your passion going. It can be really easy to have seen leaders in your past or even be working under leaders now that just is not a fit for you. And you'll know this if you've had a manager that you think is not a good fit for you, or maybe is trying to make you do things in a way that does not work for you, that can be really frustrating. It can be something that can make you just feel really repressed in your role. And so it's really important. Often we bring skills from leadership from good leaders. You know, I know for myself, some of the best leaders I've had are things that when I became a manager and a chief executive that I really wanted to emulate some of the practices that they had. So we're going to go a little bit more in depth into these different types of leadership styles, just to work on the premise as well that leadership is, you know, little aspects of this. So you may just recognize your own style in here, but you might recognize it against 2 or 3 different ones, and that's okay. So there's no formula here for leadership. You know, a lot of the research that comes out about management and leaders comes from other countries. It comes in different capacities and different time frames and different years, and it's not necessarily relevant in an Australian or an Aotearoa New Zealand context. So it's really important that you keep an open mind, but it also might help you think more deliberately about what your leadership style is or what leadership style you might want to aim for. So the first one we're going to look at is transformational leadership. So this is really a big, you know, someone who's a big picture thinker. You inspire others about what's possible. You thrive on change and progress, and your enthusiasm is really contagious. So you bring lots of people on with you. You're really good at selling a vision and bringing about change. You often lead during periods of growth or reinvention. And you motivate your team to move beyond the kind of status quo where you're at, where you're currently at, and having a big picture to really stretch out from that and transform and maybe do things in a new way. So absolutely, this visionary thinking is a real strength for you, and your thinking and your motivation and your inspiration for change are really important. But what you need to watch for is being really too far focused, too ahead of where everyone else is. And that can mean that often you might overlook some of the practical details that need to be ticked before you can move forward. Or you might burn out your team because you're just too far forward and they're running to keep up with you. The second type of leadership is relational leadership. So this is where you really lead from your heart. And I see a lot of relational leaders in the nonprofit sector where relationships are really at the heart of everything that you do. So you listen deeply, you build trust, and you make space for others to feel seen and heard. You prioritize connection and well-being, and you create safe and really inclusive environments. So this means that you're really empathetic, you have really high emotional intelligence, and you're great at bringing team cohesion. You kind of know where everyone is in your team. You treat them as both individuals and a collective, and you work alongside them to help them be the best that they can. But what this can mean is that you can be a conflict avoider. So you can avoid some of the tough conversations that you have or delay decisions just to keep the peace. So all of these relationships, relationship and leadership styles have positive things and challenges as well. So there's no right or wrong here. There's just different qualities and different characteristics. So then the next one is adaptive leadership. So that's where you're comfortable navigating uncertainty and complexity. When things shift really quickly, You respond with flexibility, you're really resilient, and you have a willingness to try new approaches. You're definitely an innovator, and you support your teams to adjust and evolve and learn as you go forward. So the strengths mean that you're really flexible and creative. Resilience is not a word that I usually use, but I think this does work here. I prefer the word sustainability. There's a great TED talk about how resilience is trying to kill you, which I really took on board. And you need to watch that you might just get stretched way too thin, or really struggle with structure and consistency. So I think we're all a little bit adaptive in the nonprofit sector, because ultimately you have to be. There's so little resource and such a big mandate of what you're trying to achieve that it can be really common that you have to constantly shift and change as money changes, as priorities change, even as organizations change, as boards bring in new visions and missions and new strategic direction. I think we all have a little bit of this, but an adaptive leader, this would be your primary leadership style. Then the next one is strategic leadership. So you're a real thinker and a planner, very out there, focusing on long-term goals, ensuring that every step gets taken aligns with that broader vision and mission of the organization. You understand systems, and you're very good at joining connections between things, and you guide your organization with clarity and intent. So that's great to have that kind of alignment and clarity and long-term thinking for an organization. It's really important. You can think about today, you can think about tomorrow, but a strategic leader will be really thinking long-term and that kind of longer-term space about where you're leading and where you're walking towards. But you do need to watch for being really stuck in planning and analysis. So this could mean that you might disconnect from the day-to-day reality of what it's like for your team. And as a strategic leader, it's really important that you're doing those touch points. So with your staff, with some of your stakeholders, your partners, so that you make sure that you're not just too far ahead, that you're actually thinking what's also happening on the ground and building that into your decision-making processes. And then the final leadership style is servant leadership. So that's really about where you lift other people up. You focus on meeting the needs of your team and empowering them to grow and make decisions and to really thrive within the organization and the people that you're serving. So you're humble and supportive and deeply values driven. So that's the real motivation about what keeps you going. So you lead through service, not status. So you might be someone that doesn't like to be up the front, be the main person that's heading things. You're more someone that's sitting alongside people or even sometimes underneath and wanting to lift people up. So not necessarily wanting to be that person up the top. So this means that you are really humble and you're really good at trust building. So alongside that relational leadership style, you're really good at building trust, and people really see you without that sort of sense of ego or hierarchy that some leaders will have. And that you just are about empowerment. You're about helping people step up, step out, and really thrive and step in. You're creating new opportunities for people to come forward. So you do need to watch here if this is your primary style that you are not taking on too much yourself. It can be really common to not want to be in a conflict stage. If you're a very servant leader, you don't necessarily want to have those kind of hard conversations. A little bit like the relational leader, you want things to be really nice. And you don't want to step forward, and it can mean that you don't necessarily set boundaries that protect your own energy. So I see a lot of servant leaders in the nonprofit sector and some of the people that I coach and mentor. I see this kind of there's almost a philosophy that happens in the nonprofit sector often about really putting everyone else first and putting yourself last. But as I've already said, that means that you just really end up being on empty. and that's not a long-term way to kind of run the marathon, right? It's a sprint maybe, and in a particular opportunity that might be helpful, but in a long-term environment that just doesn't really work. You need to be constantly working on your energy and keeping it moving forward, and filling your cup first, so that enables you to keep giving to your community. So as I've said, you might recognize some aspects in these different leadership styles that apply to you, and you might recognize a few or more of those. The thing about your leadership style is really just taking time to reflect and really actually thinking about what kind of leader do you want to be. When everyone's running, fast forward through in the nonprofit space, things are always busy. It's kind of often a 24/7 role. Even if you're not at work, you're thinking about it in your brain and you're planning forward for what's going to happen going forward. Often as a leader, as a volunteer manager, you don't have a lot of space, or you don't give yourself a lot of space to sit down and think really deliberately about what are the qualities, what are the characteristics that you want to have as a leader. So I really encourage you after today is just build in a little bit of time, even half an hour in your diary this week. Just go forward, set a little bit of time where you're out without interruptions, away from your phone, away from your emails, away from people interrupting you, and just sit down and just get a piece of paper, get a journal, sit down and just start to reflect on the type of leader, the type of characteristics that you want to have as a leader. Once you've moved on from your role, what is it that you want people to be thinking about you? What style suits you, and what's a kind of style that really makes you feel energized? It makes you feel like you're keeping your integrity, and it really makes you feel like you are doing the best by the people that you're managing. So next we're going to move on to looking about spot the gaps. So you've done your leadership style, you've done that work, and you've done that reflection. What happens often is that people feel hugely buried in this idea of imposter syndrome, that the reality is that you are the one person that doesn't have it together, but everyone else has it together. I can tell you that's a complete delusion. I mean, pretty much every person that I come across has imposter syndrome, so it is incredibly prevalent. I think it is, I personally believe, more prevalent in the non-profit sector, because it's often not that common to be getting a lot of affirmation in your role that you're doing a good job. The salaries are not that great often. You get no professional development. Some people have kind of performance management systems and KPIs, but some people don't. So often there's no formal feedback on how you're doing in your role. There's not a lot of time for someone to pat you on the back. In an organisation that's a business or government, you're usually working alongside a manager, so there's somebody that's giving you direct feedback. When you're running an organisation, often there's a board that is just working temporarily and doesn't have a lot of time to spend with you. So imposter syndrome is really, really prevalent. But I just want you to also reflect on this, that it's common, almost everybody has it. But that does not mean that you are an imposter in your role. So just work on the premise that within your role, you cannot be all things to all people. It's really common in the non-profit sector to feel that pressure, because there's often never enough resources, never enough people, specialised people, unless you're working in a really large non-profit, in which case, you've got fundraisers and comms people and marketing people and donor people. You've got all of these different roles, but when you're working in a non-profit, you're just running here, there, doing lots of different roles. You cannot be expert at all those things. And the point is not to put that pressure on yourself to try to achieve that, right? The reality is that's just simply not possible. Instead, it's about working out where are your strengths and where are the things that elevate you, that you're really skilled in, that you have lots of experience in, and then where are the gaps. So you might have imposter syndrome. Unclear boundaries is another really common thing that happens. You're used to saying yes, so being very sacrificial, particularly in that kind of servant leadership style. You're used to just saying yes to everything, taking everything on, even though you might feel really overloaded. You just say yes to all the things. You don't build boundaries in there. I really encourage people when I'm coaching them to say build some boundaries around time for you during your week. So I'm saying put in some time, whether it's that half an hour to reflect on your leadership style, whether it's 2 hours to just do a bit of strategic thinking, whether it's just some time after a meeting. Like I'm not a fan at all of building back-to-back meetings. I think after you have a meeting, you need to have a little bit of a downtime, have some fresh air, go for a walk, at least have a bathroom break. Just actually give yourself a little bit of thinking, processing time and space. Don't be thinking that you have to fill your calendar full. Also, what happens is sometimes your calendar is shared with other people, so people are just booking in back-to-back meetings. It's just not a productive way to work because you're not filling yourself. So again, it comes back to this idea of keeping your cup filled. And then you need to really be thinking about doing too much on your own. It's really common to do this, really common to just be constantly thinking that you have to do all the things and not reaching out, not putting up your hand, or not delegating things. So really encourage you to think on these kind of 3 areas. I've put on there about reflective journaling, which I've mentioned. Just spend a little bit of time about where you're at, what drains your energy, what fills you, and really think about your role and be really deliberate about trying to build in a little bit more space for you to be able to really adapt, adjust, give yourself a little bit of brain space and a little bit of physical space to help encourage and help you just be the leader that you want to be. So thanks, Kelsey, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rochelle. I've got your next screen up here, which is talking about the clarity sessions that you offer, which maybe we can throw to a couple of questions first. We've had a couple come through and then you can wrap up with talking about that as well. But one of the first questions we've had come through is, based on the different leadership styles and the areas for improvement, do you have a key tip you would give to help leaders make the most of their natural strengths?
I mean, my key tip is you need to be really deliberate in your leadership style, and to be deliberate, you need to actually sit down and have some reflective time so that you're actually aware of what is your leadership style. So noting down some characteristics. There's some great sort of online things you can just Google for this. There's a list of qualities or a list of characteristics. Just go through there and spend a bit of time highlighting the things, narrow it down, like pull out, 3 to 5 priorities and just remind yourself. Sometimes I put little notes on my computer that just to remind myself. I have one that says, people value those who identify what they don't yet see. So I constantly remind myself, because that's a good thing for coaching, right? That's a good thing for a coach to have. So yeah, just pop it on a little post-it on your computer.
I love that. Another question that came through, which I also, as soon as you said it, I was like, I'd love to ask this question. It's just about how you mentioned the difference between resilience and sustainability. What does that difference look like to you? How do you, think about that?
I think resilience is, for me, about you get, as the song says, you get knocked down, you get back up again. So resilience is you keep going and you get back up, and you keep going and you get back up. Sustainability, for me, is the difference is that when you get knocked down, you take a little bit of time for yourself. So a little bit of quiet time, a little bit of rebuilding, a little bit of rest, a little bit of reflection, and you give yourself a little bit of space to do that before you get back up. I think that is the way that you recharge, you process, you reflect, you actually give yourself a little bit of space before thinking, right, okay, I'm just going to get back up and I'm just going to keep going. But you can't do that forever. You need to be in much more sustainable practice.
Absolutely. And I think as well, something I was reading the other day, I can't remember what the word was for it, but by being that little bit more sustainable and maybe taking a bit more time rather than just trying to get back to where you were, it actually helps you to actually supersede where you were, because you're able to do that little bit of, okay, take stock of what's happened and then even progress further. And so it's actually pays off in the long term, slowing down to speeding up. Awesome. Any more questions for Rochelle, please pop them in the chat. But in the meantime, did you want to just chat a little bit about your clarity session?
Sure. It's basically all there. So I offer a 60-minute clarity session. So I offer these to non-profit people, volunteer people. I mean, my background is leading non-profits and working at the board level as well. So I generally either have something that can help you problem solve about where you're at. Sometimes it's just really helpful to have a voice process and go through. And then you walk away after that 60 minutes with some next steps about what to do. And you can just go to my website if you're interested in that.
Perfect. I'm very excited for your workshop coming up, and thank you so much for giving your lunch break as well to our community here today. We've still got a bit of time here while I throw across to Michelle, so any last minute questions, please fire them across. Otherwise, I can also send them to Rochelle post the call as well. But over to you, Michelle, to chat about the Changemakers Hui.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Yes, Michelle Kitney here from Aotearoa, Volunteering New Zealand. So much in what Rochelle just shared provides nice segues into the Changemakers Hui. So the Volunteering New Zealand's Volunteering Changemakers Hui is being held in Auckland on the 9th and 10th of October. So the 9th is the day that Rochelle will be doing her masterclass, and the 10th is a full conference day where Rochelle will also be with us. It's about sort of picking up on themes from Rochelle's korero. It actually is an opportunity where volunteer leaders, people who work with volunteers, or can have some space and time for you and your leadership development and your volunteer leadership development. People tell us year on year when we run this that it fills their cup. So those are sort of some of the things that Rochelle was talking about that are important to people who lead. And I think when we talk about leadership in this context, we do mean it really broadly, because volunteering is an act of leadership, and people we do need leadership to enable and sustain volunteering programs within communities and to enable volunteers. Essentially, volunteer leadership and engagement is a key enabler for creating change in communities. So it's really important, and we've got a really great lineup of speakers, including starting out with Dr. Professor Spoonley, who will give us an update on some of the high-level stats that are important for us to look forward to into the future. Several awesome breakouts, and yeah, lots of stuff. The program's going up on our website today, and another really exciting bit about it is that the inaugural in New Zealand Volunteering Awards, with the support of Rosterfy, will be announced. And this is another way to sort of shine a light on volunteering leadership. So we've got a volunteer program of the year and an emerging leader of volunteer engagement. And we're just so stoked to be able to do this in collaboration with Rosterfy. We had over 50 nominations across the categories, and some really amazing nominations have come through. So really excited about that. Make time, come to the conference. We would be so excited to host you. I'll stop now.
Absolutely, and yeah, I will actually be at that conference along with Rosterfy's co-founder Shannon Gov. So please come along, and if you see us, come up and say hello. I'd love to meet you more, you all in person. We've come to the end of our sessions. These sessions always go past in just a flash, I suppose, because they're just half an hour, but it means we can get more people coming along in their lunch break. So thank you so much. I've got QR code up on the screen here, as I always do, if you'd like to learn more about Rosterfy and have a chat with us. And there's my contact information as well, which I'm sure most of you have if you're on this call. But otherwise, mā te wā, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your lunch break with us. Thank you so much to Michelle and Rochelle for coming along and sharing expertise today. Very excited for the October conference for the Hui and for the awards, and to meet you all there. And our next Lunch and Learn series will be the first Tuesday of October. I can't remember the date, but we'll be sending out information on that shortly, as well as we already have a brilliant guest lined up. So hope to see you all there. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Kelsey.